Hello, and for today, I'm going to talk to you about globalization for the next little while, and I'm going to share a story, a visual story about what globalization is and why it should matter to any of you. To start then, globalization is the continuation of capitalism. Capitalism has its origins going back to the 1700s, Great Britain in fact, and the first Industrial Revolution, a time period when the British and eventually everyone else were creating stuff. But you might ask yourself, how does this impact your lives now? Or why is that relevant to know? Think about where you're watching this video right now. You might be at home or in your apartment. You have lots of technology, and lots of that technology is connected to the internet. You might be asking yourself as well, do you like to travel? For me, I love to travel. I love to travel in the summer. The reason why I love to travel is because from a young age, I was always told, even by my grandmother, that the world was my oyster. I can go anywhere that's safe, too. And I can learn so much about myself and the people who share this planet. The idea of traveling everywhere, with capitalism, industrial revolution, comes with the idea of global village. We are all connected. We are all together. And this connection is made possible because of one technology, the internet. The internet has changed our society and made us so integrally connected with each other, anywhere in the world. And speaking of that, there's one super important word when it comes to globalization, that is connections. Now, connections comes from essentially where you do your research about traveling on the computer. Chances are lots of the pieces that made this computer were made in different countries. How symbolic that you were using a machine to research about other places, even though other places made that machine. From my trip, my very first ever trip I went on my own was to Australia. And after a few months of researching on that globalized, assembled laptop, I bought my plane tickets from Vancouver to fly to Australia. If there is another machine that truly represents individuality and global village, technology and freedom, it is the airplane. Once you fly from Vancouver, Canada to Australia, it's about 15 hours. Normally these two countries don't have much in common. But because of globalization and airfare and computers and so much more, we actually do have a lot of connections between Canadians and Australians. And being a young guy, living on a budget, going to a country by myself for the very first time, I did what most people do when they go to Australia for the first time. You go to the beach, surf, get the sunburns, and discover yourself in a different country, but still having it safe to do so. I even remembered in high school, the science teachers would tell me about how many poisonous snakes and other animals in Australia. It was one thing to see in a textbook, it was another thing to actually see these animals with your own eyes. Globalization, another example. But, traveling in your young 20s, you don't have a lot of money, you're living out of a backpack, but you want to buy some souvenirs, but you don't have a lot of room. How do you do this? Put it into a shoebox and ship it back home. There are thousands of these cargo container ships shipping goods all over the world. That's globalization. And how is more globalization? These container ships would get to their home cities, unload, and then trains would take those goods and transport those goods to the desired locations. Now, how did I organize my trip? And the absolute epitome of individuality is the smartphone. The little oracle of knowledge that exists in our pockets. Every piece in that phone is made in different parts of the world, assembled in a different country. You can organize your entire trips, contact family members, pay your bills. It is all from the phone. Incredible, really, when you think about it. But at this point, then you might be asking yourself, so what? How does this matter? How does it all connect? And for the individual, globalization and this travel story represents freedom. Freedom. So, what about freedom? The idea of traveling and freedom, for me, began with my favorite thing in the morning, a cup of coffee. Coffee beans that grow from different parts of the world I buy to give me energy. Globalization, again. From that coffee, you can ask yourself, where does this leave us in our story about globalization and travel? I'll let you think about that for a moment. Remember that word? Connections. We are connected. Global village. Did you remember that word? Global village? Global village also means travel. Travel. And globalization is individuality.